Give me 1 second. All right, the recording starts. We'll be sharing this video later with the community so that they can also benefit from it. So the question that we're going to do together is like, how would you, let me just actually read the question exactly. How would you grow Spotify by 20%? All right, so how do we get started? What do you guys think we should do? Go ahead, Joseph.
All right, so I think for this one, I just want to clarify. So what are we talking about in terms of 20%? Is it acquisition? Is it revenue? Is it, I'm not really clear on that part.
Fair enough. So let's say it's revenue.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, AG, go ahead. Did you want to add a comment?
Yeah, so I had the same clarifying question. So is it this revenue, overall revenue or revenue per user?
Let's assume this is the overall revenue.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or any other thoughts? Satish, go ahead.
I assume you're talking about the top line or the bottom line?
Top line, because we're kind of looking at like overall revenue. We just want to see how we can kind of grow the revenue by 20%.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question. So when you say revenue, is it like revenue? So let's say in 2022 as compared to 2021, like is it 1 year?
Yeah,
revenue?
let's assume that's the annual revenue that we want to increase by 20%.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Joseph.
Are we talking about like specific geography here in terms of growing it in the US or?
No, let's say that all we care about is that this company named Spotify, we want to increase its revenue by 20%.
Okay, got it.
Okay, go ahead, Satish.
Are we actually going on with the solution, or
Yeah, up to you. I mean, I think
okay.
if you need more, if you want to ask more questions, go ahead. But if you think that that's kind of a good start, we know enough to kind of get started, then we can just kind of get started. Yeah.
Yeah. So Spotify actually is a Swedish company, and it is pretty much has a presence worldwide, give or take, because there are some areas of certain countries it may not be actually making a full penetration, but it does actually have its service available. And its business model is usually freemium kind of business model. You get a certain amount of like free slab, and then it goes to premium. And the revenue model is usually based on either the subscription or the advertisements actually they put through. I'm not a user of Spotify, but that's my understanding of what they do. So in the recent years, just let me know when you want me to stop. I have the full solution. I can actually talk to it. Just if you want to actually gather others talking, I can stop and give yield the time.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks so much for giving me a chance. So maybe I'll quickly go around, see what other thoughts people have before we get into the solutioning. But yeah, like I think once people are good with like what we discussed so far, then it's okay to kind of move on to the next step. So I can see that a couple people raised their hands. Maybe I'll start out with Joseph, and then I'll go to AG.
Yeah, so probably one thing I will want to understand is why are they, want the kind of these strategies? So more of like, are they seeing any decline? Are they seeing any like, new competitors coming in? So in terms of that, I just want to understand why they suddenly want to have this 20% kind of thing.
Yeah, no declines. It's just like, you as a business, you always have to try to grow your business. And, one of the big indications of like growth is usually revenue. And that's one reason that we're thinking about growing.
Okay, I'm just surprised it's 20%. It's kind of big.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you bring up a really good point, because we talked about we want to increase the annual revenue by 20%, but we didn't say we have to increase it within 1 year, right? So that's something to
Okay.
kind of keep in mind.
Like
Fair
the
enough, but
timeline.
yeah, like, I mean, I don't think, to be honest, like personally, in my opinion, it doesn't matter so much. Basically, what they want to see is like, how can we grow Spotify's revenue, right?
Mhm.
I think to me, that's kind of like the core question of it. Sure, the percentage is important, and we can talk a little bit about it, but the bigger question is like, how do we grow the revenue of Spotify? That's really what they're trying to kind of get a sense, right?
Mhm.
So I'll go to the next person. AG, did you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so one of the question I wanted to ask, like, is it okay to ask what the business model is, like how they are getting revenue, like what are the different things?
Good question. I would say if it's a business like Spotify and you're
Mhm.
like a kind of a person that wants to work in tech, um, it is, I wouldn't say it's like kind of you must know, but it's almost like kind of expected that you would know what Spotify is, because it's one of those like kind of leading consumer tech platforms that, you know, for you as a tech savvy person, you either use it or you've heard of it. So, you know, if you don't know what like a consumer product, tech product is, it might make the other person think that, okay, does this person like have even like a, you know, smartphone, for example? You know what I mean? Like, you just want to be careful about like not making yourself come across as somebody who's not like very updated with the latest in tech. So my preference would be that you would know, but if you really don't, then you just don't know and you have no choice but to kind of say, to be honest, I don't know what Spotify is. I don't know how it works. Can you tell me more about it?
Okay.
Okay, so let me go to Shivangi and get Shivangi's thoughts. Shivangi, I can see you've raised your hand. Did you want to add a comment?
Hello.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So, do we have to build on already existing features, or can we enter a new market segment? Something
Your
along
choice.
the lines.
Your
Okay.
choice. I think we're, for us, it's like, how do we grow the revenue, right?
Okay.
So up for anything really. All right. So I'll go to Satish now.
Okay. So there are three different strategies the company can adopt. The reason I'm actually bringing the different strategies are, one is, and it's possibly extension of what they're already doing. They are actually enabling artists and all of that, and reaching into the rural, untapped, and remote market with the local culture. Um, Incorporating those things is one strategic way they can look into. And the second one, I can expand on this, but I want to actually go over the basic strategies. By and large, so far around the world, still the stations over the air are the biggest medium of music delivery. So one of the strategies would be, how can Spotify get into this market, link itself with a branding as either Spotify slots or Spotify stations, and try to bring in what's some relationship between people listening and linking them up with other stations. And the third one is, there has been a lot of success with reality TV and radio. There haven't been much in the radio program, but reality TVs and sports have been a big thing. So one of the other venues they can actually look into it, how can they bring in the reality aspects of, in their case, it's going to be music because their main business is music, and have a strategy to involve that, and then eventually either link it through an existing TV channels or through the stations, maybe on what's a program window based, or could be the second thing which I actually said about all the station, getting into that market. All three have some sort of things interlinked. They don't need to actually be done at the same time. They could be incremental from outreach into rural and remote areas to bring in that culture in there. Maybe get into the stations in not so populated and not very competitive markets. And then at the end, get into the reality market. I haven't sized the actual impact they may have, but it's going to be significant uplift from where they are today. And after, once everybody gets the term, I can go through the evaluation of each of the solutions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. So correct me if I'm wrong, one idea is really try to like kind of basically bring new, I would say like kind of users by entering markets that you're typically not very active with. In this case, the segment that you identified is like kind of the more rural area, and maybe do that with the help of like more local markets or like kind of indie music players, indie musicians. And then the second one was enter the radio stations market, because there's still like, that's kind of still the main medium of like consuming music. And then the third one was kind of enter the TV industry by maybe having a channel that is like leveraging or presenting a lot of the content that Spotify already has, right? That's fair. Okay, I want to go to the next person. Shivangi, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so since I'll say something along the lines of Spotify's mission. So since their mission is to unlock the potential of human creativity by giving artists an opportunity to develop their art and fans to enjoy it, I think they can leverage the fact that people are living scattered away from their hometowns, and they would like to enjoy their local folk music, something live, some kind of a live music, especially during festivals. So they can leverage something around that market.
So just to clarify, are you saying this in support of the first strategic choice that Satish discussed, or are you saying that would be a separate idea? I just want to make sure I understood you right.
Yeah, so yeah, almost on that lines, but they can have something like a live music, not the recorded one, like people have during festivals. It is being played in their hometown, so that thing can be.
Got it. So local concerts and events, basically, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, cool. I would categorize that as a separate one because it's a little bit different, but that makes sense. Okay, sounds good. I want to go to AG. AG, did you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so when I talk about like increasing revenue, so I see increasing in two ways. One is like expanding your user base, and second is let's say you expand your new users and then go to different markets and then get some money from them. Or second is basically you focus on your existing users and get, let's say, convert them from free user to paid users. Right. So I see it in increasing revenue in two ways. So is it okay to like focus on one, or like basically go from one to the second?
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying there's like two ways to do it. One is like you increase the number of users, and the other option is you increase the revenue per user.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
you're saying like, do I want to go? I mean, it's fine. You can there's two ways, to be honest. You can go here. One way is you can kind of quickly say that I'm going to focus on, let's say, increasing the number of users right now, because I think that this is still like a product that's in growth phase. And for that reason, I think signing up like new clients is the most important thing. Or you can argue and say that we're kind of starting to reach this point where the momentum of Spotify is going to take care of bringing new clients. And I want to make sure that we're kind of paying attention to generating sufficient revenue per client, because Spotify is becoming a public company and they need to start paying more attention to their financials, right? So it goes back to like how you want to argue for it, to be honest, as a PM, and what kind of viewpoint you have. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's also okay to not make this decision at this point. Like, for example, when you look at the first three ideas that was brought up, one of them was very suitable for basically signing up new clients, whereas the other two ideas was more suitable for increasing revenue per client in many cases. And to be honest, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine if you don't clarify that. I mean, one of the ideas actually, or maybe we can even say both ideas, that the second and third idea, were also not about increasing the revenue maybe per user or number of users. It was just like entering a completely new kind of line of business that maybe is consumed by the same users, new users. The revenue model is very different. It's okay to kind of go down that path as well. I would just say that be careful about not tying your hands when you're thinking about your strategic choices by saying something along the lines of like, we only have to focus on like increasing the number of, for example, customers or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, I want to go to the next person. Okay, who's the next person? Shivangi, did you want to share your thoughts?
No, I'm done. Sorry, I didn't put my hand on.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. All right, so we got 4 ideas now, I think, and these are, to be honest, pretty interesting ideas. Somebody mentioned like now is the next thing for us is to evaluate them, and they're right. We need to evaluate them. We need to look at like the potential size. Who's interested in helping me with that?
I'm actually holding back, usually end up talking too much. So
So
if
Bijan,
you
I have a
wanna
doubt. I have a query here.
You have a what? Say it again.
I have a query. Should we do some kind of SWOT analysis to understand like where the strengths are, where we have opportunities in the market that we can fill the gaps and increase our revenue?
I mean, so to be honest, you could, and I would say that the place for you to do the SWOT analysis ideally would be before you discuss the solutions, right?
Okay.
So ideally you want to kind of like think about, okay, here's what Spotify is all about. This is what they're good at. This is what they're not good at. And then talk about your strategic choices. So let's do that quickly. But I think it's a good idea to do a SWOT analysis because in many cases it like sheds a lot of interesting lights in terms of like what sort of opportunities are in front of them and what sort of opportunities are not. So let's do that. Go ahead. What are your thoughts about what the analysis looks like here?
I haven't been able to come up with points. I just thought if we can think along those lines.
All right. Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on how to do a SWOT analysis here? Like what are Spotify's strengths? Can somebody help me with that?
A large user base.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Large user base. Yeah.
Okay.
Like strong relationships with the, you know, the ecosystem partners, with the musicians, with every, you know, with the music studios, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Can we say maybe strong like user experience, like fairly satisfied like user base?
Yeah.
Their product experience is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Awareness, like user awareness is also high. Like even if those who are not using.
Yeah, you're right. Distribution channel. That's an interesting strength, right? Or I don't know, maybe that's more of an opportunity, but it is I would put it on their strength for now. Okay, what else? Can we think about some weaknesses?
on the strength side, you may want to note down the technology and
Yeah.
also operational excellence.
Yeah, that's true. The technology and like especially on the AI side, I'm personally like really loving their weekly discover feature that like on a weekly basis they suggest some new music to me. So yes, technology and AI knowledge and delivering better UX. Yeah, operational excellence. Okay. Can we think about some weaknesses as well? Go ahead.
So competition will go in threat, right?
Well, let's talk about some weaknesses. Like, can we think about any weaknesses?
weakness is still basically they are catering to the slightly educated, what's a segment of the population,
Yeah,
which may not be actually that much of a weakness in Western countries, but this is actually a significant weakness coming to some of the Eastern countries. And I am personally not aware if they're actually multilingual, but this day and age, I assume they are, but I haven't seen it myself.
okay, fair enough. I kind of put a question mark there since we don't know. All right, what else?
I think one weakness. I'm not really a Spotify user, that's why it's hard for me to contribute. But I think one is they need internet access, right? Compared to you cannot just download music, for example.
That's a very good point.
Mhm.
You must have internet. That's a very good point. Okay, Shivanki, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not completely sure about it, but I think they can have the video as well for the music, because I think a lot of this music streams, they have videos as well, especially I think in my home country we have videos as well with a lot of music, so I think they can. So if I want to see something of that sort, I have to go on YouTube.
So sorry, would you put that as a weakness?
No,
That they have
I'm not
video?
sure. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. Just that's what I said. I'm not sure, but I think they can have that.
Yeah, I think they have video today.
Okay.
Yeah, they have video, at least for a lot of the musics, they enable you to actually watch videos as well.
Okay. Sorry, I was not
Music
aware of
videos.
that.
Oh, it's all good. All
Yeah.
right, can we?
So I'm not sure of the lyrics, whether they have lyrics of the music. No.
Okay. Is that a weakness? Like,
I mean,
is
maybe an
it being
opportunity.
asked by the users? I wonder.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, fair enough. What about, let's move on to opportunities. Can we think about some opportunities?
Before we actually move on, the video, if they do actually have, should actually go into the strength, not into the weakness.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I didn't list it there because I agree with you that video is more of a strength than weakness. Yes. Okay, I'll add it to strength section. Okay. All right.
Opportunities to expand to different market,
Okay.
like being multilingual.
Yeah, many unserved markets,
Yeah.
right? Geographical, age groups, income brackets. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, as you said, like age groups, maybe for kids, they have some kid specific content.
Yeah. Okay. What else can we think about?
I think one is like making use of like influencers, because I think it's trending right now in terms of social media to promote their music, for example.
Got it. So can you elaborate on this a little bit? Are we saying that would
Influencers,
be
like endorsements, probably, leveraging on those people that can promote Spotify. So
got it. So we're saying I guess influencers, are we saying influencer support, like of is that the idea? Would you say that that's like kind of one of the ideas that they can kind of go after? Is that what we're thinking?
yes, in terms of opportunities, probably in promotion and stuff.
Okay. Basically partnerships with influential celebrities, right?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Can we think of like some other like mega trends here? Like what are some of the other big mega trends that we can think about?
So there's actually certain countries where karaoke is a big thing, especially like Korea or Japan. So in some ways, enabling a karaoke kind of feature would probably be a good opportunity for them, because you would actually bring in a different set of people into their space.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so basically, I guess what you're saying is that the opportunity, because we're not still talking about like technically like strategic options yet, is like the demand for basically participating in like kind of in karaoke, right? That's kind of like the opportunity that you're observing right now. Is that right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
it could be just part of the untapped, which I mentioned, rural and remote, and this could be cultural stuff.
Yeah.
That is still one of the ways. I didn't mention all other, but definitely a cultural untapped areas. And the karaoke is quite a bit of cultural thing in some parts of the world.
Yeah, that's fair. So I kind of wrote it as like kind of demand for participating in karaoke and other like kind of unique cultural music activities. Okay, fair enough. All right, can we think of anything else? Like, I mean, I think another one that kind of we talked about it is like various ways of like consuming music, right? Like today, music has mostly been consumed through the channel of audio, at least in the case of Spotify. That's been their area of focus. So other medias, basically other mediums of like mediums of exchange of music, right? An example could be video, maybe VR we can think about, right? So these are like kind of some examples. Can we think of anything else? Satish, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't lower my hand.
Okay, all good. All right, anything else? All right, do we want to talk about threats real quick?
One other thing, since you asked me to say something, I don't know what all partnership they're actually working on. Each of the companies are doing their own, like Apple or Amazon and these guys.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any market in outreach with the partners.
yeah, that's a
further.
good point. Large companies looking into getting basically this business, right?
But the problem is each of these guys are trying to do their own stuff.
Yeah, and that
including,
could be both an
including
opportunity and a threat. Yeah.
including Amazon. So there's a whole Amazon Music going on, right?
Yeah, so that's totally fair. So I think a good example is Apple Music, Android, Amazon. Okay, fair enough. And what else can you think about as a threat? Shivanki, go ahead.
Sorry, not for threat. I thought something for the opportunity. So they
Sure.
can provide some kind of a platform where people who are just getting into music, they might get an opportunity to record their music, something, and share with their friends. Like people who are just starting out, they might not have some kind of a paid interface, expensive interface.
Got it. So basically, remove friction, right? Remove friction. I guess the opportunity is like kind of untapped demand for music creation, right? By musicians, by independent indie musicians who don't have the resources to produce their music, right? That's what you mean, right? Like they basically today, they don't have a way to do it, and that's an opportunity, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
like for
fair enough.
anyone who would like to compose and share with your friends, anyone.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, can we think about another threat?
Main threat for them is going to be the big companies who are trying to enter. I don't see anything more threat than this big guys entering. That's going to be their big stuff.
Yeah, that's very fair, and I think, to be honest, that's been a big issue for them for a long time. I'm not so, to be honest, familiar also with the industry overall, with the music industry. I don't know if there are other kind of up and coming platforms that are maybe optimized for a new emerging like kind of segment of musicians, like maybe more indie musicians that are doing a better job than like, let's say Spotify. But for the sake of the argument, go ahead, Shivanki, did you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so in a lot of countries, I think there are threats from the local players. So if I have to talk about my country in India, there a lot of people, they do not listen to music other than the Indian music, and they in that market they have a lot of competitors like Ghana.com and all, and the people don't really use Spotify, so they are losing
Got
a
it.
very big market segment there.
Got it. So local, basically, music streaming service providers. Okay, sounds good. And that's a really good point that you brought up. Thank you so much for sharing that. Joseph, did you raise your hand?
So probably we can say also the threat within the companies, like I think Spotify, people can listen without even going to premium, right? So people staying like free all the time. So I think this is kind of a threat within them.
Sorry, say it again. What's the threat?
So the threat is like people not converting to paid users. So I think the free if you are free users, you can really use it in terms of the functionality, in terms of enjoying music, and you don't have to get into like a paid kind of thing, being a paid user. So I think this is kind of a threat to them in terms of not getting people to their premium model.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what people think about that. Like, is that a threat? Satish, what do you think?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Can you just rephrase it, please?
Sure. Like basically the suggestion was that people not converting from free to paid, that's a threat. And I'm wondering what people think about that. Do people agree that's a threat?
Oh, that's definitely a threat because a lot of people don't convert. But I don't know in case of the free, whether there's any commercials in between where they make money out of it. But as long as they can actually get revenue in some ways, whether it's a free or paid, it should be okay. Because at the end of the day, radio stations are free, but they do make their money with commercials.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, something very interesting you brought up, which is like, just because they're not converting, it's not going to kill their business, because it looks like Spotify has this kind of like, dual business model where if you're free user, they're making money out of ads. If they're a paid user, you're making money out of ads. So that's something to keep in mind.
But
Maybe, yeah.
so I had another comment in terms of the threat, but I'll wait for you to finish.
Got it. Okay, go ahead. No, that's it. Do you want to share your thoughts?
So the biggest threat for Spotify is they do not have the third-party integration for hosting or things doing anything related to music. What usually happens is when they are leaving out people to go and invent what they call it, I forgot the name. Typically, they have this. Okay, I'm not getting the name. The guys who actually come under and take over disruptive technologies. The official definition of disruptive technologies. Something like that happens because right now, by not enabling the third parties to come on to their platform, they are letting other solutions seed. And once the solutions seed, they get some hold, they start trending in terms of technology, they start eating up at low where they don't really pay attention, and eventually they end up taking over the system. So by not enabling the third parties to enable the service on their platform, they are actually incubating a big threat for themselves.
So I'm trying to think about like how I would write that. So the threat is basically third parties going direct. Is that right?
What is that third party? Say it again.
Your concern is that you're saying today they're not enabling some of the third parties. Is that right?
The way I was seeing is that if anybody wants to give music service, they should have enabled that they use the Spotify platform with the major brand of a Spotify. Maybe it's like I think Shivangi mentioned about things in India. It could have been Spotify Raga instead of just Raga. Right now, it's building its own brand. It's putting infrastructure together. It's learning how to do these things. Once people acquire the knowledge of how these things work, then they always aspire to actually take out the competition. By giving them the service, you are actually keeping them ignorant of how the bigger picture works, and they focus on a little thing, and you still actually are the gorilla in the room. So always giving room for someone to learn and start getting into the market is one of the reasons many big businesses actually fail. You don't want to completely shut them off or give it over to them, but make sure that they're under your wing while you still keep the name brand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, fair enough. Okay, sounds good. So we got some good ideas here. I really like how we did some SWOT analysis here, by the way. I think SWOT analysis is really important. It just gets a lot easier to think about our strategic choices in front of us once we go through like a SWOT analysis, right? So that was a good suggestion. I think it came from Shivangi, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you so much for suggesting that. I'm curious to know, now that we've talked about the SWOT analysis, is there any other strategic choice that we're interested in adding, or we would like to move on to evaluation? If anybody is interested, please raise your hand. Satish, your hand is up. I don't know if it's from the previous round or you actually want to share.
It's from the previous one.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts, any new strategic choices? If not, that's okay. I think we have 4 interesting ideas that we can kind of move forward with and start exploring our strategic options. All right, I'm going to move forward. We have 15 minutes, so this way we can actually finish right on time. All right, so we want to evaluate our strategic options. How do we do that? Like, can somebody help me, like, kind of share their thoughts on how we should do this?
We should probably take 4 things into account. One is the reach, effort, and the possible outcome as 3 parameters to evaluate each of these.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, and when you say possible outcome, can you elaborate on that?
Means if we go down this particular route, what's our probability of winning or having a satisfactory results in terms of risk?
Yeah, and I guess the other part is also just like revenue itself. Like, can we really increase revenue? Does it have like a 20% kind of growth potential, right?
Yeah.
I would kind of word it as like probability of increasing revenue by 20%. That's kind of like one way I could maybe contribute here. Okay, sounds good. Any other criteria that people want to share here? Curious to know. I mean, to be honest here, there are a lot of criteria that we can add, right? Because we're making like some really big strategic decisions here. Like, we're kind of putting ourselves into the shoes of like maybe the CEO of the company a little bit, or like the CEO of the product. And there's so much that goes into it. Like, we could think about it from, does it contribute to a better user experience, right? Does it, strengthen our marketing abilities, right? Does it, improve our maybe bottom line, right? There's so many ways that we can kind of go about it. So I think it's fine to go with these 3, but keep in mind that in strategic choices evaluations, you're kind of like taking a broader view of your opportunities, and you're kind of evaluating them with a broader view than like kind of looking at like different product features where you're kind of looking at them like more tactically. In this case, you want to kind of think about them as a business owner and like really take a 10,000 feet view on your choices. Okay, sounds good. So who's interested in helping me evaluate some of these options? It looks like we have some evaluation criteria. We have some strategic choices. What do we want to do next? All right, anybody interested in helping me evaluate the choices in front of us? All right, so first option is like really, yeah, go ahead, Satish.
No, I was just waiting if anybody else wants to
No, go ahead, you can
take a shot.
contribute, yeah.
I really want to see how other people would say. So, or maybe I'll hear you out.
No, I mean, the first one is like extension of like what they're doing, reach out to more local markets. I'd argue that yes, the reach is pretty big, but the effort could also be pretty significant because there's a lot of like new relationships that we have to establish. There's a lot of probably maybe even rules and regulations that we have to come by. There's a lot of kind of like local considerations that we have to keep in mind. So the effort is pretty significant. But the good thing is it's kind of leveraging the existing technology. The user experience, actually, even for existing customers, could get better because now you have like more variety of choices as well. So that's kind of like one way to argue about it as well. And yeah, it could increase revenue by 20%. There is definitely a large segment of the market that Spotify is currently not serving. So that could be one way of like kind of going through evaluation of a particular strategic choice. Any other thoughts? Anybody wants to share anything?
And also probably there might be a lot of capital requirement, and that's probably going to be one of the really serious item you have to note down, because getting on to the public radio channels is not cheap.
Yeah, so so it's pretty expensive to basically, you're right, to expand into like some local markets. It's the capital requirements are pretty high. You have to, it's pretty much going to take them also a long time to execute, right? That's another thing to keep in mind. Okay, do we want to talk about the other strategic choices, and can we evaluate those as well?
Okay,
Who's
I'll
interested?
talk to
Yeah.
it.
Sure, yeah,
I'll
go
talk
ahead.
to it a little bit and then leave others to add to it. Some of the reality music, let's say, things got quite popular. There has been the American Idol and other things like that. So while we may or may not consider appearance on the TV itself, but there's probably a big market to get the audience involved in some of these things through a non-TV channels, or maybe on the radio. There's like a number of ways which can be actually done. And this also gives people in the more places to participate. They don't need to actually come into a particular place to do it. So that has a good potential. Of course, they actually had to put out some, what's a winner gets something, some rewards and all for those. They could start off regional and keep tapering that up to the nationals or internationals. And that has had success with the other programs people have done. I see that it has a good reach, possibly cheaper than acquiring a radio station. This I'm still assuming is going to be over a internet medium, or maybe through the mobile where people could actually participate. There might be development work involved in developing tools for people to really kind of make this proper live, or like live, or maybe a recorded one. There's many number of ways it can be done. The downside of this particular strategy is that it does need good amount of planning, and there has to be a marketing outreach for this so that you gather enough participants for those.
Yeah, it needs a lot of market planning. You're right. You also need to kind of like establish maybe some like partnerships. Unless you kind of decide to completely go digital and not rely on like traditional, TV partnerships to get your channel out. So that's a pretty good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the other thing is it could have local physical presence people kind of run them up and aggregate it up. Could be music schools, could be the high schools, maybe like even they can go down kindergarten. Parents will be pretty excited to see their kids play, participate in this kind of competition. So probably they may have to do a combination of things so that they can leverage um, resources outside of their own immediate, let's say, organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds good. Cool. And then what about the fourth one? What are your thoughts on that?
What's the fourth one?
I think the fourth one was like kind of doing like more like kind of local events and concerts and basically kind of leveraging your relationship with existing musicians and music studios to generate additional sources of revenue.
Yes, that's also a good one, but I don't. I mean, it definitely would have been one of the things I would have actually pull into these two earlier ones because that's also kind of required. But that can be done independently as well.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say though, it's like really a new line of business for Spotify. Like they're not really like kind of an event management organization. They're more like a technology company that enables you to listen to the music that you like, and also connects you with the right musicians that you're interested in, or as they say, like unlocks creativity. So I would say that that's like maybe something that's like a completely like almost like a new business for them. So like the learning curve maybe will be very heavy.
Mhm.
And there'll be
But while you're saying this, other thing happened, and this is not completely my idea. Somebody also mentioned to it. A lot of schools do have music program. They do actually run bands, and one with the COVID now it's a little harder, but maybe it's an opportunity as well. Parents, grandparents who are not in the same town who cannot come to the school itself, if Spotify has some sort of engagement where they can get the school programs on some of these channels to get out live through their systems, how the college football took off. This could be another segment which they can explore.
Yeah, that's fair. Go ahead, Shivanki. Did you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so the fourth point, what I meant was not organizing the event, but the events are already taking place in different parts of the world. And when they're taking place, that live streaming can be done through Spotify. The
Sorry,
folk
say that
events, the
again.
folk
Your voice
music.
got cut off for a second.
Yeah,
Can
so
you
for the fourth
repeat?
point,
Yeah.
I didn't mean they have to organize the events. The events are already taking place in different parts of the world as per their festivals and whatever traditions. They can just stream that live music, that local folk music, wherever it's
Got
happening.
it. Stream live events, basically.
Yeah.
Got it. So, and even if that case, I would say like they'd be competing with, and there's nothing wrong with competition. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but be competing with like the Facebook and YouTubes of the world. But their advantage is that they have existing relationships with a lot of these musicians, so it's probably easier for them to even get into some relationships with some of these folks. However, having said that, every musician probably has like a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, right? So that's like something to keep in mind. And yeah, we'd love to kind of get your thoughts, Shivanki, now that we're talking about this one. Like, how would you evaluate this from like some other perspective, like, reach, effort, possible outcome? Like maybe, I know we only have a couple minutes, so maybe you can share your thoughts for a minute about like what the possible outcome could be. Like, could it increase revenue by 20% in your opinion?
I think if I can get to connect with a lot of local folk music players, then the impact on the users will be really big. So suppose I play from certain areas of India, then there will be a lot of people who will be situated across the world and they'll be able to use it. So I think the impact will be big, but I'm not sure if it'll take me to 20%.
Got it. So you're worried that impact is big, but it might not be 20%. Whereas,
Yeah.
and I think that's a very good point. And would love to know also, like Satish, your thoughts on like the first three ideas. When you think about them from a possible outcome perspective, what are your thoughts right now? Do you mind like kind of sharing for a minute really quickly? Which one do you think is like maybe a 20% potential?
The 20% potential, I actually still see reality TV, reality music kind of participation. This is not going to come from any of the developing countries, but developed countries. But this has quite a bit of potential in developing countries where there's not much opportunity for people to showcase their talent. And if they can provide the audience who listen to this, there is going to be a large amount of participants. And the participants comes with listeners. And then that's how they would actually see. They may not actually get a paid subscriber, but they're going to actually get a lot of listeners, which also translates into revenue in some sense, because if there are 1 million people watching, the advertisements would actually be costing more.
Okay, that's fair. And so we're right on time. I would love to kind of continue here and spend more time and kind of evaluate them a little bit more, but we're right on time. But if we had more time, what we would have done right now is we would have like said, okay, now based on our evaluation, we think like, for example, option number one is got the most potential because even though it's hard, but it has the most likelihood to deliver the 20%, and it's aligned with what Spotify's mission is. The product experience is the same. The product experience will also get better. And you can kind of expand on that. And here's like kind of your chance to provide a quick summary of what your evaluation outcome is and make a recommendation. One thing I usually suggest people at this point is to make sure that just so that you can address what's in the mind of the interviewer, you also quickly provide like a bit of a disclaimer and say like, however, having said that, even though if I've chosen like option number one, these are some trade-offs that I have to continue investigating on if I was like the PM that was making this decision. Like, for example, I would investigate further to see like, do people in local markets have the willingness to convert, like, financially? Are they comfortable with like technology of like listening to music on their phone and things like that? So that's something to keep in mind. We're right on time. Unfortunately, we're over time. I won't be able to answer more questions. Got to jump to another meeting. Thank you so much for participating. I will be here next week again. We'll be doing more sessions. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.